Voltaire said, if you can convince me of absurdities, then I can commit atrocities. So I think if you look at how we think, I would say that we are educated to not think correctly about how we think. And that's one of the biggest problems that we have. Most people think that they're consciously in control of all their thinking. Most people think that, free will is completely there. I do think it is, but I think you've got to understand how your brain functions to get more of it. And because of that, they end up being in a position where they don't think that they can be manipulated or influenced in quite the way that they can. And that in itself is really key, because the people that are not thinking too deeply about thinking are coming up with conclusions, not realizing that the information that got them to arrive at that conclusion was fabricated into their mind. And that, a bit like if you watch Darren Brown or any of those guys, they do something. So on that thinking, the point is that you don't come to conclusions consciously. And that's one of the absolute key points. That people that have come to the conclusion that it's safe or unsafe think they've done that consciously. But what's happened is they've exposed themselves to a series of information that then the conclusions have come automatically, a bit like aha moments, eureka, etc. Most of the thinking isn't conscious, and it's quite easy to point this out. So if I said to you, what's 5 times 5? You hear this little voice in your head go 25. Now, or some people won't hear a voice, but you'll know the answer. Now, the reason that you've got that answer is because some point in your past history, you have automated the tables, and your brain then gives you the answer. So it's basically doing a calculation based on inputs. Now, the biggest mistake that people make is they try to tell people outputs, but they don't realize that any conclusion that you've come to, there's so much foundational information that's allowed you to arrive at that conclusion. Now, because that information happens automatically in the back of your mind, you don't really factor it into what you're doing. And this is what leads to what's known as the curse of knowledge. So when you're talking to someone, so as we're talking now, every word I use, you're going to have a representation of what that word means, and I'm going to have a representation of what that word means. Now, we're going to be in a full sense of security that we share exactly the same meanings. Now, any word like dog, cat, table, anything that's sensory-based, we're going to have such a good overlap that we're generally not going to trip over. But if I say the word respect, it could mean something completely different to you, to me. And this is where a lot of relationships end up in conflict, so that they're talking using these words, but they're talking about different things. So the key point is that the conclusion is come from lots of inputs. And what the people pushing the narrative have done is they've manipulated people's inputs to end up coming to that conclusion. And that's why most of the people that know something isn't right, a lot of them do not watch TV. Because what happens is that the information goes into the unconscious mind, most of it implicitly. So if you watch the people drop dead in the street, unless you're going, hang on a minute, that doesn't look right, the unconscious mind's going to go, it's going to, for survival reasons, it's going to go, this is horrendous. I've got to protect myself from this. Now, once someone's taken that view unconsciously, sort of in their body, nothing you say is going to change that unless you...
Thanks for watching this video. And if you want to catch the entire episode, head on over to the Radical Health Rebel podcast, where you can subscribe by scanning the QR code on the screen.